Hey, welcome to Life in the Leadership Lane. I'm your host, Bruce Waller, where I get to talk to leaders that are making a difference in the workplace and in our communities. What did they do to get started, and what are they doing to stay there? And here we are. We're closing down 2022. We're in season 3, and I'm getting to talk to another special guest. His name is Brian Hayes. Brian, well, he's the Director of Human Resources for Disability Rights Texas. He's also a former president for SHRM. He served 2021 and continues to serve in a leadership role. And he also serves the HR-Southwest Conference, as he's been doing that for many years. And he is also a Texas SHRM district director. So he's got a lot going on. And Brian, I'm glad to have you on the show. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Bruce. Thank you for having me.
I will tell you, I just mentioned the HR Southwest Conference, and you've served as a volunteer leader for many, many years. And I think that's actually where we first met. And I was just thinking, we just came back from the HR Southwest Conference. What did you think about the conference?
It was a great event. I felt like we were returning to pre-pandemic kind of conditions, if you will. Large turnout. Lots of energy, lots of really great sessions that were presented. In the marketplace, there was just a lot of excitement and energy, and a lot of great representation by vendor partners and supporters of the HR community. So it was really great to see my friends in the HR community again in the DFW area.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Of course, we got to have dinner the first night with the volunteer leader of the year, Heidi Powell. She was fantastic.
I love Heidi.
Any highlights or any takeaways? I know for me, having Tony Bridwell MC the conference, I thought that was a great start and created a lot of energy for the conference.
For me, it was just the whole total package that I came away with feeling excited about, feeling happy about. Just the different sessions that I got to participate in, and the conversations that I got to have, in the hallways, in the marketplace, at dinner, wherever, with, different HR colleagues, folks that I was meeting, out in the vendor partner world, to talk to them about their companies and their products. And I don't know that there's one event that I could put my finger on or one thing, but it was just an overall great event, and was really excited to be able to participate again.
I love how you shared the conversations in the halls, because that's a lot of the challenges we had in the virtual world is you didn't get to have that conversation in the hallway. Yeah. And that's really where you not just learn, but that's really where you connect and really build those relationships. And you're so good at that. And I appreciate that. I know one of the things that you and the team were trying to do is create a great attendee experience. And I think you pulled that off for sure. Hey, I want to get the show started here with learning a little bit about your organization. And I would love for you to share just a brief highlight of Disability Rights Texas and how you serve your customers.
Disability Rights Texas is the official protection and advocacy agency for persons with disabilities in Texas, which basically means that we are a public interest law firm focused on disability issues. We provide legal assistance, legal representation to folks who feel that maybe they have been treated poorly or differently or ignored, if you will, based on their disability. Every state has a P&A, is what we refer to it as. The whole P&A network, if you'll recall, back in the 70s, there was this young investigative reporter named Geraldo Rivera who did an expose on a facility in New York called Willowbrook, which was the state, at the time, the state insane asylum. And so they had a children's wing there that Geraldo gained access to and was able to take cameras into the facility and kind of show the deplorable conditions that those children were being housed in and living under. And so it really opened the eyes, I guess, of Americans and for Congress. And they acted to create the P&A network and to establish that group of legal associations that would provide services for the representatives or the clients from their state. And that's what we do. We have different teams of attorneys and advocates who work with folks based on issues such as education, transportation, accessibility, employment issues. And so it's really been an interesting and exciting experience to be part of a group like DRTX. We have some great staff who provide some awesome services to our clients and to the residents of the state. So I like to say I'm not an attorney, but I hire them. And I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express once.
Well, I will. I'll put that link in the show notes. People that want to learn a little bit more, dive a little bit deeper. I got a chance to visit the website, and there's some great information on there. And I appreciate what you do as we talk about the war on talent, as we talk about all of these different things. Disability workers is huge for our workforce, and I appreciate what you do. Hey, let me start. I want to hear, I've known you, but I'm pretty sure there's going to be something you're going to share about the Brian Hayes story. I would love for you to share your story and how did you get started and what led you to the world of HR and leadership?
Actually, I was in college going to school to get my degree in broadcast journalism. I actually thought I wanted to be a news anchor. And so while I was in school working on my degree, I had a work study assignment, a job that they hired me temporarily to work in their personnel department. It was for a local industrial construction and engineering firm in Birmingham, Alabama. And they brought me in, and after 2 weeks, they asked me if I wanted to stay, if I thought I'd like to, stay on with the organization. And it was a pretty well-respected company in the Birmingham area, and didn't know anything about personnel management back at that's what they called themselves. But I remember joining the team permanently, and they said, we're about to change our name. We're going to be Human Resources. And I just thought, that's strange. That's weird. How did I fall into this? But it was interesting because I got to work with people and help them with a benefits program that just kind of snagged me, I guess, if you will. I got, involved with that and started learning a little bit more. And at that time, a lot of organizations in the country were changing, going through that change from being personnel to HR. And I started learning about, what does that mean? How can I fit into this? And do I fit into this world? And I don't know. It stuck on me. It was just something I really enjoyed. So I started off working for this industrial construction and engineering firm, recruiting labor for turnaround projects at different pulp and paper and process chemical plants across the Southeast. Then started to build my career and build my role as an HR leader. Got to work for some really great organizations. At one point, I worked for the organization that makes Little Debbie snack cakes out of Chattanooga. And actually got to work with Debbie McKee, who is, she's now Debbie McKee Fowler, but she's the granddaughter of the founders. And I think my experience working at McKee Foods really helped to shape me and mold me as an HR leader because of the culture that they had there at that company and the direction that the HR senior leaders were taking the organization. It really kind of, I benefited greatly from that whole experience, and really kind of set my feet on the right path, I think, kind of made me who I am today. Worked in different industries across the Southeast, mostly industrial manufacturing, oil and gas services, those types of things, until I came to work for DRTX, kind of in more of a nonprofit type environment.
Man, there's a lot here, Brian. There is a lot here. I got to tell you, first of all, when you start talking about personnel department, I'm like, whoa, When was that? Like that was a while back, and then you're talking human resources. I want to ask you a question though. It dawned on me as you're sitting there sharing this story. I see today, you have, people departments, right? You have people services, you have all these different name changes. Any thoughts around HR? I know you mentioned that you're like, human resources. At the time, it may not have felt right, but any thoughts around what you prefer or what you like?
Well, it's really interesting that you asked that because with my organization, we are looking at should we change our name
Hmm.
to more of people and culture.
Hmm.
And I guess the thought behind that is, our department, the HR department, really is so critical in establishing the culture for the organization that
Hmm.
really supports the people. It's more of, I don't know, maybe it's semantics, I don't know, but it just feels like it's the right direction for our organization because we want to be about people and culture for our organization. If we get the people focused in the right direction, get them, happy and engaged in, the type of services that they're providing for our clients, that's going to benefit our clients. And if we have that the right culture, if we have that, and we establish that all the time, then I think it benefits our organization. So we're actually talking about it, kicking it around, like, is that something that makes sense for us?
Yeah.
Because the human resources for us, and that just seems a little bit mechanical, if you will.
Hmm.
It's like we're
Yeah.
talking about equipment and machinery and whatnot, the resources, and we're talking about people. And for us, in our line of work, our people are helping people, and so it just seems to make sense for us right now, and that's kind of the direction we're headed. It is a conversation that I'm seeing a lot more of out in the HR community, in the business world.
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing it too, but especially because sometimes I'll hear it's almost like a stigma around, hey, go see HR, right? It's that, oh no, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
But we've seen over the last several years, really, but really in particular, the last 2 or 3 years during the pandemic, how important these leaders that are serving the HR community have been for the organization. So I don't really even call them, HR leaders. I call them business leaders that are serving the community, serving the people. And it's interesting. So as you brought that up, it just made me think about that. And I'm glad to hear that is a conversation that you're having. Hey, but I want to touch on this culture as well. Because first of all, Little Debbie's. I mean, who doesn't love Little Debbie's?
I know,
I
right?
mean, come on, that was fantastic. And to be able to get to work in that organization. But you mentioned they have a great culture. I'm just curious, but we have a big HR community and business community, mobility community that listens to the show. Um, what is great culture when you said, hey, they have this great culture? Like, what are maybe a few traits that makes you say, hey, you know what? I know a great culture because I just came from that. Any thoughts around that?
Well, I think some of the things that when I look back on my time at McKee Foods, there was a great deal of consistency that I
Mm.
saw. Um,
Mhm.
the message was always consistent, whether it
Mhm.
came from the senior leaders or it came from your supervisor, and that took a
Mm.
lot of being intentional about what we're saying and how we're saying it. I had a really good mentor who, like I said, helped kind of set me on my path. And at times I remember we would talk about messaging, and some people might say, well, that's just wordsmithing, but it was again part of the intentional thing that we did to make sure that we stayed in alignment with the direction that the company owners wanted to take the organization, and that we were meeting the needs of the staff. It was a family-owned business, very focused on treating people with respect,
Mhm.
dignity. I remember, we would get really upset if we didn't pay a bill to a vendor on time, because the McKee family back in the day when they were struggling and starting out their baking business back in the 40s, 30s and 40s, they didn't have a lot of money. And so they worked with a lot of partners in the community to try to help them achieve their goals. And so some of these vendors extended them credit, allowed them to do things, pay off things over time. And so the McKee family instilled in the company that, look, then we're going to be serious about paying our bills because someone helped us at one point in time. Now we gotta do the right thing. And so it was just it was things like that about the organization. There were that, you just knew this is what's acceptable and this is what's not. It was a very family friendly organization. I've worked with others that were the same way. And, each organization has a culture, whether that's positive or negative is to be determined. But, those places that I can look back on and go, that was a good culture where, and some of the, I didn't have to really struggle to find out what are you all about, and the way they managed and led on a day-to-day basis really aligned with the words that were on the wall, the mission statement, they lived their mission truly. And so I was really glad to be able to have been a part of that for some years in my early career.
I love that. Hopefully you had access to Little Debbie's. I mean,
well,
on.
I was gonna say when they hired me, my office was right across the hall from the production line where they created the cake rolls. And I will say you could go get fresh product off the line and take it back to your office and enjoy it all day long. And I kind of did that for a while. And so my waistline didn't it suffered, but
that's
nothing
fantastic.
like a fresh Little Debbie.
That's fantastic. I wrote down 3 words when you talk about culture. I wrote down consistency. That was huge when you said that. I wrote down intentional, and I wrote down doing the right thing. I love everything you shared about that. You also shared that you had a great mentor. I always like to ask my guests on the show because I feel like there are people that have helped us get to where we are just along our journey. I was curious if there were a couple of people that have helped you, and what was it that was so great about their mentorship?
Well, yeah, when someone asks or asks the question about mentors, automatically triggers some faces in my brain that just pop up. And these were folks who, in some cases, were senior to me when I started with the organization. Later, we, got promoted up and we were on a peer level. And so I got to learn from them as a subordinate, but then also as a peer, I got to see them demonstrating some of the characteristics and aspects of what it was like to be an HR leader. And so I started modeling that. I started copying it. They were modeling it. I was, stealing shamelessly, so to speak. But I mean, I look back and I think, they were very, again, to use the word consistent, they were always, I may not have agreed with their opinions, but their opinions and their actions were very consistent, and they were always focused on, if you make a mistake, make the mistake in the favor of the employee, and you'll never go wrong. And I always thought, what? Maybe, but maybe not. But over the years, I found, if I can, if I can make a mistake, so long as I do it in the favor of that employee, I think that's the right thing to do, and ultimately, it'll work itself out for the better for the organization. At least it has in my experience.
I love that. I always talk about taking care of the customer, but what you're talking about is taking care of the internal customer, right? Because we have both the external and internal, and the employees are internal customers that we're trying to serve every single day. I appreciate you sharing that. You mentioned that you were going to be a broadcaster or an anchor, news anchor. I love that. And you would have been a terrific news anchor. But you basically, your path led you to human resources and leading people, and you've been absolutely terrific in that area. I always like to ask the question, Brian, about purpose, and I always call it finding your lane. Like, was there a moment, or have there been moments when you said, you know what? I've been doing this for a long time. I love what I do. Any thoughts around that?
I can't put my finger on a specific time when the light went off and I said, "Oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing." But I think I've had hundreds of opportunities over my career to get reassured that, yeah, you're doing the right thing. This was the role meant for you. And I think all those kind of tie into situations where I've been able to help someone either achieve an objective that they were trying to achieve. I've helped them, maybe give them some advice on career goals or a career path. But just, the thing that I think is so cool is when I get those private messages back to me from an employee that just says, "Thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. You didn't talk over my head. You didn't talk down to me. You didn't act like I was, asking, I'm sure you're busy, but you took it was like I was the only thing that was important to you at that moment." And I think that was a skill set, I guess, that was demonstrated to me years ago, and I snatched onto that and tried to emulate it. I think those have been the times where I've been like, you know what, all of the other craziness aside, if you will, and all the stress and struggles that we face as HR leaders, put that aside. This makes it all worthwhile. The fact that I was able to help this employee or this applicant or a colleague, of mine, an HR friend, makes it all worth it. I mean, we don't get a lot of public praise in this line of work, and so those things mean a lot to me. And I don't know, I put them in my back pocket, and I think, okay, that when I'm having a bad day, I pull those out and I go, yeah,
that's fantastic.
Keep going, you got it.
That's fantastic. I love that. We just got through reading The Purpose Factor by Brian Boucher and Gabrielle Boucher, and it talked about when you can use your talents to serve others, that's when you really find your purpose. And that sounds like that's what you're doing. I love that, how you said, I always talk about validation, but you said reassuring, these moments where you've been reassured that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And I just love that. Hey, let's talk leadership here, 2022. I always like to ask my guests on the show, there's so many different ways to define leadership. When someone says, "Hey, Brian, what's leadership to you?" How would you respond to that?
Conducting yourself in such a way that others want to be like you or want to follow you or want to. So I feel like, and I'm sure I've seen quotes over the years and whatnot that I can't think of right now, but that first things first, get yourself in line, you demonstrate, you lead by example, then it makes it so much easier for other folks to want to follow you. That's kind of always been my mantra. I was a Maxwell kid, coming up in the HR community, the business world, reading John Maxwell's books, and I lapped that stuff up because it made so much sense. But the whole concept also of servant leadership really resonated to me, and has always been something that I've adhered to and made as part of my, I guess, leadership style.
Yeah. That's fantastic. I'm a big fan of John Maxwell. I remember when he said leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less, right? And that's exactly what you're doing, is when you start with yourself, you take care of yourself, you model that leadership, you're going to influence a lot of people because you're going to inspire them. They'll be like, "Hey, I want to be like that. I really like the way they approach that employee or that question or that project or whatever that is." I love that. Hey, so, you're in a director role. I mean, you got a lot of stuff going on. You wear a lot of hats. I'm just curious, what do you enjoy most? I mean, your employee relations, you got benefits, you got all strategy, you got execution, all these different things that you're doing. What do you enjoy most?
I think it's the interaction with my people. I say my people, kind of like Moses, they're my people. But no, I think that while I love the strategic part of my job, and that has, as I've grown into a more senior level role with my organization, it's been really great to be able to sit down with our executive director and kind of help him drive the organization and think strategically about some things. That's fun. I really do like that. But I think the thing that really makes me kind of leave the day going, okay, it was worth it. What is those opportunities to interact with my staff and to just hear what's going on with them and how are things with their clients, and trying to figure out ways that I can help them, even if it's a minor thing, but just make their lives easier and make them more successful in their roles working with our clients. So that to me is the most fun thing. And of course, serving the HR community is a huge plus. I love all of my HR peers and our family, if you will. It's great to be involved and to give back to the community.
I'm just curious, obviously you have a lot of, you've had a lot of success and you're doing a lot of really great things. Any, challenges? I mean, obviously the last couple of years, we've come out of the pandemic and we're moving past that. I'm just curious, do you lead any differently today than you did, say, 3 years ago? Any thoughts around that?
Yeah, I would say I'm constantly learning and pushing myself into areas where maybe I'm not as strong or don't have the expertise. But yeah, no, I do lead a little differently because I think with the circumstances that have happened over the last 2 or 3 years, obviously the pandemic has really impacted a lot of us and how we lead our organizations, how our organizations are structured and whatnot looks a lot different than it did, in March of 2020. But then also the social justice struggles that happened over the last few years and kind of understanding those communities and kind of what they're, being able to walk a mile in their shoes, so to speak, has been really impactful to me. And I think has caused me to try to be a more compassionate and understanding HR leader. Mental health issues being on the forefront of a lot of organizations' minds, if you will, has really helped me because it's like, okay, I want to kind of find out more. What's the more to the story there? Because that, in order for me to help you as an employee or a colleague, let me find out what's kind of causing this, and maybe I can help remove that issue, or maybe I can help you navigate around it, or I can be a champion with you, and we'll change. We'll fight the system and make it better. So yeah, I would have to say I am leading differently because I'm a little bit more knowledgeable and I'm a little bit more open to what I'm learning.
Yeah, I one of the things that I've noticed from leaders that really are making impact, they're very curious. And I think that's also what it's done for me over the last few years is it's gotten me a little bit more curious on some of the different topics going on. Like I want to learn more about that. I don't really have a thought until I can really learn and understand and look at different people's point of views. And I think for me, that's been very helpful. So let me ask you this. You are, again, you've got a lot going on. You're doing a lot in the workplace, but you've also really invested and committed your time in the volunteer leadership. And I wanted to spend a little bit of time on this because I think there's a lot of people listening that are volunteer leaders, but there's a lot of people listening that think, hey, I'd like to volunteer. I'd like to get involved. I just don't have time. I'm curious from you. You've not only served as president in Austin, you've also served as president in the Bay Area. You've served in a lot of different areas. What's really driven you to volunteer, Brian, and what keeps you volunteering?
Well, that's a good question. I've often wondered, why do you do this? Because I have enough on my plate with my paying gigs, we all do. Why do you put yourself out there to have other responsibilities? And I don't know. I think that I grew up in a home where we gave back to My family, my parents were involved in the church that we grew up in, and so we were always kind of there to help minister to the church family, or at least my parents were. I wasn't as a child, but I saw that emulated, and I guess that may have kind of gotten intertwined in my in my being, if you will. And when I found the career that when I figured out HR is what I want to do, I had the opportunity to be involved with and I got involved pretty quickly with the local HR associations. When I was in Chattanooga, I was involved with SHRM Chattanooga there. Great chapter. Got the opportunity to participate with SHRM National through SHRM Chattanooga. And then when I moved to Houston, not long after I moved to Houston, I got involved with the little chapter that was in the Clear Lake area of Houston that later became known Texas Bay Area SHRM. Then once I moved to Austin, I was very interested in getting active with the local association, because I feel like it's something I need to do in giving back to the HR profession and helping others. And I don't know exactly what it is that drives me and motivates me. I think it's I enjoy being around my HR colleagues. It's kind of the family that you can talk to, that you can't talk to. You can't talk about your job with other people, but you can talk with your HR colleagues. And I've been very fortunate to be around some really great HR leaders and brilliant minds that I could just kind of pick little nuggets from to help me be better. But it was like the thing that you were supposed to do is to get involved, and so I didn't know how, but I'd go to meetings, or I'd say, hey, you need help for this, and I think I would say to folks who who have a little bit of time, they don't have a lot of time, but they have a little bit of time, then do something with that little bit of time.
I love that.
Use that little bit and contribute, and you'll see over time that'll grow. I think you'll find that you're able to make more time to do that, and it's more fulfilling. That's kind of the thing that keeps me going is doing what I can to give back, and the opportunities that I have to interact with some great colleagues. That's a plus.
With someone that, and I'm just curious your thoughts on this. When you start volunteering, there's not a whole lot of time. You basically go to lunch and then you volunteer on a committee, but you volunteer extensively. Like, you've been a president of a couple of chapters. You serve Texas SHRM. You do that very well. And here's my question, I guess. How is it volunteer leadership? How has that helped you become a better leader in the workplace?
Our HR associations are they're organizations. They're things. They're living, breathing entities, and it's taught me how to interact with folks. It's taught me how to be able to get folks engaged who are doing it not because I'm paying them a salary or any kind of compensation, but they do it because they want to. So it's helped me grow as a leader in that respect. I think it's benefited my communication style because you have a vast array of folks in your organization, and you have to kind of meet everybody at their point of need, and on their terms, so to speak. So it's enabled me to kind of grow my communication style, and then the learning, the exposure that I've had to such great learning over the years has been beneficial to me. I've got to meet a lot of great HR leaders and like I said, thought leaders that are just life-changing. And so just a little bit of time around them has really impacted me in a positive way.
I love that. I wrote down communication because I tell people all the time, especially young people, that if you can get better at communication, you're going to be way ahead of the pack. And it's just so important. And I'm like you, Brian. I've learned how to be a better communicator because I've been around people who are great communicators. And
Right?
when you surround yourself with people, you're gonna pull things from them. And I love everything about that. Hey, well, let me ask you this. I did want to ask this one question because, and again, if you're listening right now, pull out your journal. I hope you're taking notes here because Brian, I've noticed about you, you have an innate ability to connect with people. You are a connector. And I'm just wondering, like, where does that come from? Is that something that you've had to work on? Have you always been that way? Talk a little bit about the importance of not just connecting with people, but how do you stay connected? And I think that's what a lot of people struggle with as well is like, hey, I connect with people, whether it's on social or at a meeting or whatever the case, but staying connected and continuing to build. I would love to hear your thoughts around on that for the listeners.
To a large part, it was shaped through my life growing up in church.
Mm,
My mom and dad were involved with music at the church, and so as the oldest child, I got put up on stage all the time to
mm,
sing various songs to the church, and then that continued, throughout my high school years and whatnot, and then later I had the opportunity to sing in front of a large number of people. And the thing about that is when you're communicating a message through song, you're trying to connect with the people that you're singing to. Because I mean, if you get up there and just sing, that's great and wonderful, and you're going to still have people that go, "Oh, that's so nice. That was such a beautiful song." But where you really get the impact is where they go, "Oh, that touched me like you would not believe. That just was such
mm,
a heartfelt song, and I felt like you were singing to me, or you were, you know." And so I didn't, I couldn't do that for all the people that were in the room, but some, you learn that skill, and I think from a communication standpoint, making sure you're connecting with that person and that
mm.
you're because you kind of have to feel it through. It's not a once and done type thing. You're kind of, as you're going along, you gotta watch for those cues and that feedback, and then adjust a little bit and whatnot and go on. So I think that's kind of a way that I developed that skill.
I love that. Oh my gosh. I love that. I love the cues, the feedback. But here's what I want to know is do you still sing?
I do some karaoke from time to
I
time.
love it.
I've been known to grab a microphone
I
and
love that. I love
I do
that.
like to sing. I do.
I can't wait to connect with you next time. We're going to get a mic out. We're going to do some karaoke. That's fantastic. I love that. Listen, man, you like Mac. You talked about Maxwell earlier. He talks about the law of connections, and you definitely have that. You have that. You just have that ability, and I wanted people to hear that. And I love how you talked about those cues, getting that feedback, making that adjustment. But it's a continuous work in progress. Like it just never stops. It's something you just do every day. You work on your connection, right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Hey, let me ask you this. I always like to ask my guests if they ever have been given any advice in their career, like it was just so good, they just find themselves giving it and sharing that with others. Any thoughts?
Early in my career, I worked when I was just starting off in the personnel/HR department.
Mm-hmm.
One of the senior leader actually was one of there were three gentlemen whose names made up the acronym for the organization. This man was had retired, so he was kind of sunsetting his career, if you will, and he still had some duties for the organization. He would come in, had his office in the portion of the building where I was located, and I remember one day we were standing talking at the window, and he was watching people go out to their cars, and he goes, "You know what, young man?" He goes, "You know what your job is? Make sure all those people want to come back tomorrow."
Mm.
And I thought, well, that's cute. I was like, isn't he precious? But it really made sense, and I thought, well, yeah, we do. When you talk about establishing that culture and establishing, policies and procedures and the way that you do things, you're really hoping, okay, I want you to come back tomorrow and give it 100% tomorrow. Let's do it again, and again and again and again. And that ultimately results in, the organization meeting its objectives, whatever those are. If it's making more widgets, if it's making more money, if it's impacting people, if it's changing a law or concept, whatever. So that's always been something that stuck out in my mind. And it was quite simple advice. And maybe it's right, maybe it's not right, but I've always thought that it was something to keep in mind, and it's stuck out all these years. I mean, gosh, it's been a couple of years since he told me that. So yeah,
that's special. I know there's some people right now writing down, be the person that creates that environment that people want to come back to tomorrow. Man, that is fantastic. I think I've heard something close to that before, but the way you put that just now, it made me want to make sure that whoever I'm talking to, that they want to come back, right? Whether it's come back to a SHRM, maybe it's a SHRM luncheon, maybe it's the HR Southwest Conference, maybe it's, in the workplace, wherever, just being that. And I think that's one thing that we all have the opportunity, right, is to create that environment that people want to be a part of. And so, man, I love that. I told you before the show started, the time is going to fly, and it's flown. So we're going to shift over to It's Time to Accelerate, last part of the show. I always like to ask my guests, do you like, reading a book or listening to a podcast? And do you have a favorite?
Well, of course, Life in the Leadership Lane. It's one of my favorites.
I love it. I'll pay you later.
We didn't plan that. I swear to y'all, we did not plan that. No.
Hey, let me ask you this. We're here. We're at the end of November. This is Thanksgiving season. And I'd love to ask you what you're grateful for, Brian.
I'm grateful for working for an organization that has the vision, the goals that we have established. I'm very fortunate to work in my role with the people that I get to work with every day. I'm also very fortunate to have family and friends that are second to none, that I can call on at any time if I have a need, if I need a pick me up, or if I need to just vent or laugh for a minute. I'm very fortunate. I have two beautiful daughters who I love dearly. I have two fur babies who I do love dearly, and they're beautiful nonetheless, even though they can be messy sometimes. But and I think, just being able to get to do what I get to do, it's kind of cool. It's just like, wow, they pay me to do this. This is awesome. I'm very fortunate. I'm just extremely blessed to know the people that I know, to have been able to sit next to folks at the table and learn from them. And so I think there's a lot of things that I have to be fortunate or be grateful for, and that I'm fortunate of. And so those are some of those that come to mind.
I love that, because we all know we have challenging days in our profession. It doesn't matter what our profession is, there's challenging days, but when you have those, all those great days, it overshadows all of that. Hey, let me ask you this: when you're not working, what energizes you outside of work? What do you like to do?
I love to travel.
Oh,
my favorite place to go is to the beach, and I prefer the Northwest Florida, Alabama, Gulf Coast beaches, just where I've been raised and what I'm used to, the white, sandy, sugary, sandy beaches of Northwest Florida and Alabama. But I also enjoy being around my family and my friends. That to me is where I get re-energized and am able to reset, if you will. But yeah, and I do like I mentioned this earlier, I do like to karaoke from time to time. So that's
He loves the karaoke. I love that. Hey, last question, Brian, and probably one of my favorite questions. Brian, 10 years older, he's around the corner and he's knocking at your door, and you're going to go answer that door. What's he going to tell you?
Just keep doing what you're doing. Just persevere. Stay true to the principles that Poppy taught you growing up. Stay true to those principles that my mom instilled in me, and you're going to be all right. You know, that there's going to be some highs and there's going to be some lows, but all in all, you're going to be okay, and you are worthwhile.
I love that. That's a wise 10-year-older Brian Hayes. I appreciate you coming on the show, just sharing your wisdom, perspective. I enjoy serving with you on Texas SHRM so much, and all the people listening knows why now. Hey, for those who, well, they're not connected with you yet, Brian, and they heard something you said on the show today, and they want to either connect or follow you. What's the best place for them to connect?
Well, they're welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn.
Okay.
My my username is Brian S. Hayes 2022, and so it makes it pretty easy to remember. But make sure you put the S in the middle there for my middle name, Scott. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's B Hayes Texas 1969.
There you go. Instagram, LinkedIn, connect with Brian Hayes. Brian, I appreciate you coming on the show. Again, just sharing your wisdom. I appreciate your friendship, and man, I can't wait to share this conversation.
Thank you, Bruce. I really have enjoyed being on this podcast and serving with you on Texas SHRM. It's a lot of fun, and I count you as a great friend. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Hey, happy Thanksgiving, man.
Same to you.
All right, talk to you later.